Good day to each one of you, distinguished participants. I'll start by extending my sincere appreciation to Hayaan Heritage for granting me this opportunity to join you to talk about this very important topic. The focus of my presentation is on the tangible, but we should keep in mind that very often it is a challenge to talk about preserving the tangible minus the intangible. Next slide. Are you able to go to the next slide? So my presentation will touch on the following points: why tangible heritage matters, current challenges facing heritage conservation, international best practices, the importance of community engagement, and the future of heritage conservation. Next slide. First of all, what is tangible cultural heritage? We need to understand what it is before we can proceed with the presentation. So tangible cultural heritage refers to physical manifestations of human creativity, history, and identity that possess cultural significance. It includes, but not limited to, archaeological sites, historic buildings, monuments, cultural landscapes, historic towns and villages, museums, collections, sacred places, industrial heritage, military heritage, and vernacular architecture. I've just shown a few examples there. Next slide. So why should we preserve heritage? Why does it matter? There are, of course, several benefits. I've listed them below. Basically, we can group them into cultural benefits, social benefits, economic benefits, and environmental benefits. I will not go into detail for each one of them. I think that would end up being another webinar. Next slide. So we have a site here. I don't know if the moderator will allow me. Can someone quickly tell me what site this is? I want to see if people know the African sites. Does someone know which site this is?
Someone said, sorry, a Great Zimbabwe. Is it Great Zimbabwe?
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Great Zimbabwe, I'm sure most of you know about it, or at least you've heard about it. And I'm sure you all agree that Great Zimbabwe represents an extraordinary architectural achievement and an enduring testament to the ingenuity, social organization, and cultural traditions of the Shona peoples who created and sustained this remarkable cultural landscape. Its conservation protects irreplaceable historical evidence, strengthens African cultural identity, and provides opportunities for education, research, sustainable tourism, community livelihoods, and intergenerational transmission of cultural knowledge. More broadly, Great Zimbabwe demonstrates the significant contributions of African societies to architecture, urbanism, trade, and cultural development, making its preservation important not only to Zimbabwe, but to Africa and the world. Moving from the Great Zimbabwe and going back to the statement, why heritage matters. heritage buildings, sites, and objects are not simply remnants of the past, but they are also living assets that shape our identities. They strengthen social cohesion, support sustainable development, and contribute to local economies. Next slide. The challenges being faced in the preservation of heritage can be environmental, human-induced, or institutional. In the background, you can see an image of the Kasubi tombs in Uganda, which were devastated by fire in 2010. And more recently, we had the destruction of the Fakhr al-Din Mosque in Mogadishu, Somalia. International conservation practice has evolved over several decades. Next slide. Reflecting a progressively broader and more culturally inclusive understanding of heritage conservation. The Venice Charter established a foundational framework for modern conservation practice, emphasizing respect for the historical and material integrity of monuments and sites. Later, the Nara document on authenticity expanded this understanding by recognizing that authenticity must be assessed within different cultural contexts and through a diversity of values, sources, and tradition. More recently, the Nairobi Outcome Document on Heritage or Authenticity further advances this discourse by emphasizing authenticity as a dynamic, contextual, and culturally grounded concept, particularly within the diverse heritage realities of Africa and the Global South. Together, these instruments demonstrate a shift from predominantly material-based approaches towards a more holistic conservation practice that recognizes cultural diversity, living heritage, community knowledge, intangible values, and the continuing relationship between people and places. So today we have conservation, just the previous slide. Conservation emphasizes, just have listed down some of the principles, the major principles which are emphasized in conservation. That's authenticity, integrity, minimum intervention, reversibility, compatibility of materials, scientific documentation, preventive conservation, regular maintenance, and sustainability. So I think most of them may be straightforward. I'll just expand on authenticity and integrity. So integrity refers to the wholeness and intactness of a heritage place and the extent to which its significant attributes and relationships remain complete and coherent. And when you talk of authenticity, we have conservation needs to safeguard the attributes that convey a heritage place's cultural significance, recognizing that authenticity is understood within its cultural context and may include material, form, function, tradition, spirit, and the sense of place. Next slide, please. Communities are the primary custodians of heritage, and they possess knowledge that no technical report can replace. Traditional custodians understand cultural values, rituals, and historic uses. Successful conservation therefore requires communities to participate in decision-making, documentation, monitoring, interpretation, tourism, conservation projects, education, and disaster preparedness. One example of community engagement is at Robben Island, which has demonstrated how heritage interpretation becomes stronger when former prisoners and local communities contribute directly to telling the site story. Next slide, please. Technology is transforming conservation through drone surveys, GIS and remote sensing, 3D laser scanning, heritage building, information modeling, artificial intelligence for documentation, and digital archives and virtual interpretation. However, it should be noted that technology should support and not replace traditional knowledge. The best conservation combines scientific methods with traditional expertise, and we need to ensure that the traditional know-how is passed on to the younger generation, otherwise we will lose it. Next slide. I'm sure you all agree that Africa has enormous advantages when it comes to conservation. Our heritage remains closely connected with living traditions, and many historic places are still used for ceremonies, governance, and cultural practices. The two images I have there are for a ceremony which is held in Zambia. It's a rock. It's a rock outcrop. It has caves inside. It's a site which the locals used to use to when the, how should I put it? During the colonial days, when the colonial masters were out to trying to colonize different parts of the region and of the country. This is the place where the locals used to hide. So it holds it's of a very highly regarded place, which they still which they still value strongly. And in order to remember what used to happen there, they have an annual traditional ceremony which is held there. The name of the site, for those who want to check it up, is called Nyawunda Rock. Okay. So successful conservation projects share common characteristics. Next slide, please. Each project should have a strong legal protection that can be from the national laws, legislation, international protocols, laws. And one other thing which is very important is comprehensive documentation. And you should keep in mind that documentation is important even when it is deemed necessary to get rid of certain heritage. Of course, we don't want to get rid of any heritage, but there are cases when it's beyond our control, maybe because there's some government policy which deems it fit to come up with certain developments in a certain area, and us as heritage professionals are not able to stop those developments. In such a case, the documentation will be very, very critical in order to keep the memory of what was there and to keep the information of what was there. The physical may still not be there, but you have the documentation which people can refer to remember the place. And then we also have multidisciplinary collaboration is very important. Sometimes we find that heritage professionals will work in silos. They will not work with other sometimes government units or other organizations which are interested in the conservation of heritage, or organizations which are involved in development. For example, you may find that the heritage professionals are not talking to the local planning authorities. And the local planning authorities may decide to come up with certain developments in areas which are of heritage significance, and they may genuinely be not aware of how they are supposed to go about it. But if the two bodies were talking to each other, then a lot of damage or loss would be prevented. And then community participation, I think I've mentioned or alluded to it in the previous slides. Sustainable financing is also very critical. We need financing, not just one-off, but we need to ensure that we have the funds to continue with the maintenance, whether it's maintenance works, rehabilitation, or restoration works, just managing the sites in a way which will ensure that the heritage is conserved. And also when it comes to tourism, that the tourists or the visitors will get some satisfaction from visiting the place. Regular monitoring and maintenance is also very critical. And of course, partnerships between the government, the communities, academia, civil societies, and anyone else who may have interest or some influence on the heritage which is being conserved. Next slide. I have some key recommendations which I've put together there to strengthen tangible heritage conservation. We should increase investment in heritage. We should strengthen the legal and institutional frameworks. We should build professional conservation capacity. We should empower communities as custodians. We should integrate heritage into development planning. We should promote climate resilience and adaptation. We should encourage innovation and digital documentation. And we should expand partnerships across Africa and internationally. Next slide. I will leave you with 3 thoughts. I'm not going away. I'm still here, but I want you to go away with 3 thoughts. Firstly, heritage is a strategic resource for sustainable development, education, identity, and resilience. Conservation succeeds when communities are genuine partners. Preserving heritage is a shared responsibility. Thank you very much.
Okay. Once again, hello, hi, how are you doing? Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Chilangwa. That was very helpful to us, to me and many other listeners in this field and others who are not even in this field but care about their cultural heritage. We have a couple questions. Not a couple, let me say, a lot more than you would imagine. If you're ready, I would like to start ahead. Do I start with the questions?
Mm-hmm.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can, you are audible.
Okay, then I will go ahead with the questions. I think you have answered this question, and I see another similar question down there. They're the same, I think, but let me start with it. From your experience working in heritage conservation across Africa, what do you think is currently the biggest challenge facing the preservation of tangible cultural heritage? Do I repeat again? Ms. Chilangwa, are you with us? You are muted.
Yes, I can get you.
You had the question, or do you want me to repeat it again?
The greatest challenge, maybe we can have a few more questions.
Oh, I do a couple of questions and you answer at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's great. Let's do it 3. How can we balance, the second question, how can we balance the need for development and modernization with the responsibility to protect historical buildings and heritage? But at the same question, I think there's the same question here. This person here on the board, the writers here, he gave the same question, but for a specific region. He says, how can countries like Somalia balance the need for modern development with the responsibility to protect historically significant places? Same questions, just a different region. And then in situations where, the third question, okay? In situations where a country has limited financial or technical resources, what should be prioritized when preserving heritages? Do you want me to add another one, or is that enough for now?
Just repeat the third one.
In situations where a country has limited financial or technical resources, what should be prioritized when preserving heritage?
Okay.
Would you like me to add a fourth one, or 3 is how we go?
I think 3 is enough for now.
Okay. I'll give you the mic.
Okay. So for the first question, the greatest challenge in heritage conservation. It's difficult it's a challenge for me to just pinpoint one. And the challenges will vary depending on where you are, the kind of maybe political environment you are in your country, so many various reasons. The political will is very important because you may have the expertise, you may even have the resources, but if you're in a country where you don't have much political will, it can be a big challenge. So, like in the cases of Somalia, Ethiopia, where the the priorities of the government may be elsewhere. There can be good priorities.
Organization is mostly.
Yeah, so it depends on a number of factors, but political will for me is one of the greatest challenges, not the only one, but one of them. So in such a case, we need to be able to see, okay, so what should we do? That's where documentation comes in. There are sometimes when there's nothing you can do to stop destruction or loss of heritage. I mean, there are even cases, for example, that's nothing to do with political will, but maybe you have a historic building which is in use, but you find that the building is not stable, and you have the engineers' survey reports indicating that it's going to collapse anytime soon, and there's nothing you can do about it. There are no intervention measures which can be put in place to stabilize it. So what should you do? And maybe the proposal is that you just need to bring down the building. So what do you do in such a case? So lots of interventions. Sometimes we don't really have cut out guidelines, but we treat situations or case by case. Yeah. So for the first one, I hope I've answered your question adequately. And then the next one. The next one, how can we balance the need for development with conservation? So first of all, we would need to identify the heritage significance of what it is you're looking at, whether it be at a region, as a nation, as a country. We need to be able to integrate heritage into development planning. The local authorities usually have meetings where they involved other stakeholders to see what, as they plan for the cities or for the country. And as heritage professionals, we need to ensure that we are in those meetings or those spaces where this planning is taking place. Sometimes we can get the invitations, but other times it's up to us to be able to approach those who we know are involved in planning for these developments and start the conversations. And then we also need to, in the cases where we cannot stop certain developments, we have to at least look at how there can be minimal effects, negative effects or interventions on heritage, which can be possible. I won't go into details. Maybe if we had the case that we were looking at, we could actually go into details of what I'm referring to. And then there are also cases when we talk of development where we can actually use the heritage for some other use. It may have outlived the use it was meant for originally, but you can adapt it to some other use. And let's see, is there anything else? I'm not sure if I've answered the second question appropriately.
I think you did.
The person who asked the question.
If the person, they wrote it down to me, the question, if they feel like the answer is not enough for them, they will rewrite it.
Okay.
We can go on to the third one if you like.
Okay, the third one was the one where we had two questions, similar questions. Please remind me of the question again.
I think the second one was the one that had the similarities.
Okay.
The third one was a situation where a country has limited financial or technical resources. What should be prioritized when preserving heritage?
It's up to the country.
Yeah.
To make that decision. Yeah, we have different priorities. It's the same, for example, in a family. What my family would consider to be important may not be important for my neighbor. So it really just depends on the country, what it is they have planned for, what their priorities are as a nation. Yeah, so you can't really say. You can't really say how do you. I don't know if you get the.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the country decides which is more important. I think that's what you're trying to say, whether it's the preservation or the other needs for the country.
Of course, I'm a heritage professional, so I would be biased and say it.
Yes, I mean, that's the obvious answer for every person in the field. But yeah, so I think that answers the question, the third question. Before we move to the next questions, which you have a lot, by the way, there is a person who has raised a hand, Noni Tiana. I will leave the mic to Noni Tiana. And if there's anyone else who wants to raise their hand and go ahead with asking a question, please feel free. I will be mixing those that raise the hand and those that have written down the question. So it will be like a mix of it. So Noni Tiana, if you're available, could you get a mic?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Very clear.
So good afternoon. Okay, thanks for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Nuni Tiana. I'm a member from ICOMOS Madagascar. And at the same time, I work for the office managing the Royal Hill of Ambuimanga, which is the only cultural heritage site here in Madagascar. And thank you, Chilangwa, for the presentation. I think that she covered everything that I would think should be presented and shared. I would just like to case study, especially regarding the question from, I don't remember who asked this question, but it was how ICOMOS can help to strengthen the conservation of heritage. So for the Royal Hill of Ambuimanga, for example, there was a presidential project which was about constructing a highway that would between Antananarivo, the capital, and Tuamasna, which is a coast at the east part of Madagascar, where there is the biggest port in the country. So thanks to the intervention of ICOMOS Madagascar, and there was also a commission, a scientific commission, which is a consultative commission for the the OSCAR, which is the organism that manage the site. So thanks to the intervention of these parts, I mean, the ICOMOS Madagascar and that in scientific commission, the government listened to these, these, if I can say, not institution, but to these two platforms, which is a kind of civil society at the same time. The project was not stopped, but the path that was planned at the beginning was changed so that the site, which is a World Heritage Site, would not suffer and would not have an indirect impact for the site. So that is something that is tangible thanks to the ICOMOS intervention. So maybe that can also answer the question from one of our participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Nani.
Thank you.
I think the question she's referring to is from Alamna, correct? Mr. Yetungeta Alamna. I think I'm not mentioning your name correctly. I think that answers your question. If it does not answer, I will still forward your question to Ms. Chilangwa. Thank you, Nona Tiane, for answering the question that we needed and for your remarks as well. Ms. Chilangwa, do I repeat again the question that Nona Tiane has been referring to?
No, I think it's very clear. She was actually helping me to answer the question.
Yes.
So she's done a great job.
Thank you again. So I'm going to go on again with the questions that I have written down. People wrote it to me and then I had to write them down in a notebook. This question is, how can communities become genuine partners in conservation rather than passive beneficiaries? If that is understandable, I go to the next one. What innovative financing mechanisms can support heritage conservation? And the third question is, how should heritage professionals respond to climate-related threats?
Sorry, just take you back, repeat the second one.
The second one was, what innovative financing mechanisms can support heritage conservation? Yes. And the third one is, how should heritage professionals respond to climate-related threats? I'm going to leave the mic to you. I think you have 3 questions.
Okay, so starting with the first one, we're talking about how communities can become genuine partners in conservation. I think the heritage professionals need to first acknowledge and realize that they cannot do without the communities, because oftentimes because we are trained in conservation, we have so much experience, we think we know exactly what needs to be done. We forget that the contribution also, the community also has a say, and they have some valuable knowledge which we will not be able to get from schools, will not get from any training. Yeah, so there's traditional knowledge which is very important, things which have been working for a long time. So even when we're thinking of conservation projects for managing certain heritage, we should keep in mind that we need to involve the communities. Most times they are there and very willing to be involved, but it's us, the professionals, who I would say take a top-down approach, and we don't want to involve them because we feel we know everything. So it's up to us to take it up and ensure that we involve them at each stage. Not when we've reached an advanced stage and we just want them to endorse what it is that we have planned. I hope that answers the first question. The next one, what innovative financing mechanisms can support heritage? I think there are quite a number. This is a very interesting question. I actually had that same question. And I was hoping we could actually discuss it as a group. So, yeah, so when I was looking at it, there were quite a number of mechanisms which I was actually, not just from experience, but just doing a bit of research. So there's crowdfunding, which may not be so common in Africa, at least not where I'm coming from. But in developed countries, it works quite well. And digital fundraising. I don't have any experience in that, so I don't know if it would work well in our own setup. But we also have public-private partnerships where government bodies are able to work with private organizations. We have trust funds as well. Again, that is not really something I have much experience with. And I wouldn't be able to say how well it would work in certain countries. We also have tourism levies. For example, in my country, that's Zambia, every time someone pays for accommodation at a lodge or a hotel, there's a certain percentage which goes to the Ministry of Tourism into what is referred to as the Tourism Development Fund. And that fund is used for heritage conservation. Heritage conservation, not just in the preservation of the heritage, but also in the valorization of heritage sites, so that we also make the sites more attractive to visitors. When we have more visitors coming, especially the sites where you actually charge entry, since there are other sites which can be free. So the more visitors you have, obviously, you also get more revenue. So it is very important that our sites are also in a condition which will bring satisfaction to the visitors. And there are also philanthropists who are interested in investing in heritage. You just need to identify them. And adaptive reuse can also be a way of not really financing, but at least you'll be able to put the heritage to some use which is of benefit to the community or an area or a country. Another one, corporate social responsibility. Sometimes we have companies which will actually approach heritage bodies and say, we have so much and we're interested in investing in a certain site. But there are also other cases where it's you as the heritage professionals to approach those companies to find out if under the social corporate responsibility, they're able to invest in whether it's rehabilitation works or any other conservation works. Of course, you have to come up with a good proposal in order to convince them, especially if it's something which is not already in their budget. I think that's about it for the financing mechanisms. I hope it answers for, but I'm sure the person who asked probably also has some ideas which they can share.
As for the person who asked the question, anything you would like to add, you can please write it in the comment section we have in here, the messages. You can write them directly or as a question, or if you'd like, you can actually raise your hand. If you're here with us, I hope. By the way, I wanted to add to the fact that you mentioned tourism thing for the tangible, for the preservation. In countries where tourism is very low, in countries, some countries in Africa, like let me say Somalia, we do have sites, but it's not like the technical way where you can say, okay, a tourist came in and this is how much they're supposed to be charged. So this goes to the ministry or goes to the, it's used for preservation or anything. I don't think such a thing exists. And even if it does, I have no idea. So it's very hard even for some countries to benefit from the tourism part to preserve the other parts that need to be preserved, like the heritage parts. So it's very hard for some countries. I just wanted to add that, but it's a very good idea that's used for most of them, most places. It works for most countries, not all of them. I don't think the other person from that question has written any question. Do we move to the third one or?
Okay, so the third was, how can heritage professionals respond to climate-related threats? I think there are various ways. So one of them, documentation. I've been talking a lot about documentation. It's very important to document any heritage which is considered to be vulnerable. And this can be done digitally to preserve records where any physical loss is envisioned. And then monitoring, it would also be very important. we need to be able to monitor any changes to the environment using either scientific or digital technologies. And then we need to be able to advocate for heritage to be included in national climate adaptation and also disaster risk reduction policies. We also can undertake in climate risk and vulnerability assessments for heritage sites and integrate climate adaptation into conservation management plans. And that's one thing which is very, very important. Management plans are very important. We usually find that there are certain sites where we don't even have management plans. These are, it's a very important tool in the conservation of our heritage. So we need to ensure we have these plans. And the other point which I can mention is we need to be able to collaborate with climate scientists, because maybe us as heritage professionals may not have the required know-how to be able to deal with climate issues. We also need to collaborate with ecologists and engineers, and also the local communities, because the communities have been able to deal with climate issues using traditional knowledge. So it's a knowledge which we should tap from. I think that answers that question.
Yes, it does. It does answer. I was also looking for the answer to this question, so I get the answer as well. Thank you very much. I will move to two questions from here, then I will add one question over here. Actually, let me start with the question over here, then I will add the other two. This person says, thank you for your presentation and insights. What role does ICOMOS play in protection of heritages under conflict? Yes, that's clear? I move to the other one, second one. What role should young people play in safeguarding tangible heritage? And the third question, how can technology be better integrated into heritage management without compromising authenticity? Yes, would you like any part of it to be repeated?
Okay, so what role does ICOMOS play in conserving heritage under conflict?
Yes.
Yeah, so there are various ways in which ICOMOS is able to contribute. One of the ways is there are certain countries where it's not, maybe we don't have ICOMOS presence in terms of, in the form of a national committee, and maybe the situation is not so safe for a physical mission where ICOMOS experts are able to travel to the country to have a look at what they can do. In such a case, we are able to issue a heritage alert where we publish a statement just indicating that we've noted that there's some conflicts going on or war, and there's certain heritage which is being affected, and we strongly, okay, maybe not strongly, because you still want to be a bit diplomatic. So we just say that all those interested stakeholders should try to ensure that heritage is safeguarded, and to ensure its preservation. So that's a heritage alert. But of course, we also need to weigh other matters, even as you think of issuing a heritage alert, because it may not be politically right in certain cases to do that. So there are a number of issues which you have to consider even when you go for that option. And then there are cases where we also have ICOMOS professionals physically travel to a country to do assessments and also look at ways in which they can contribute at a technical level, technically, professionally. And then there are also other cases where, for example, we are not able to go on the ground physically, but maybe you are able to contribute to maybe procuring some equipment which is needed for documenting the heritage which is being threatened. Maybe the country may say, okay, we need special cameras or something like that. I'm just giving an example. And then we're able to help that country to procure those items. So those are basically the three ways. It may not be the only ways in which we're able to help in the preservation of heritage in countries where there's conflict or wars. Yeah. And then the other question was to do with the young ones. What role should the young people play in safeguarding tangible heritage?
Yes.
I wish we could have one of the young ones in the meeting to respond to that.
How young would you like? How young would you like them to be?
Below 30 or below 35. So
I am below 35.
Yes, so please, it's nice to also be able to get thoughts from the ones who are the subject matter. Yeah, instead of just me as a senior person dictating at, oh, this is how this is what they should do, and then they will just follow what I'll say, but maybe they also have their own brilliant ideas which are better than mine.
Any person who would like to answer the question? If you want, I would love to read the question for you guys. Anyone who wants to raise their hand below 35 to volunteer answering the question. If you want, I can read the question for you. Let me do that actually. It says, what role should young people play in safeguarding tangible heritage? Basically cultural heritages, or just the tangible, or just any sort of heritage sites or heritage places or things. How should we preserve them, and how should young people play a role in it? Anyone who wants to volunteer to answer the question, please raise your hand, or you can write it down if you want to try it. Anyone wants to raise a hand? Yes, I think we have the Hayaan Heritage team.
Thank you, Chilangwa. and you and other friends who accepted our invitation and participated the meeting. In my opinion, how young generation can participate preserving our heritage. I think it's not easy question, but I think what the first step need to be taken is to learn the heritage itself. If you know the meaning of this building, the meaning of this item, it's the first step of preserving that heritage. Not academic way, but that itself, learning the heritage itself, can be a way of preserving our heritage. Then but sharing your followers, sharing your colleagues, your friends is another way. Since we have most of the under 30 people are Gen Z, who are familiar with technology and all digital stuff, so they can easily participate the process of preserving heritage by first learning, knowing the meaning of the site or the item, then sharing them to the audience. For example, as Hayaan, we did quite similar thing in Somalia. We established a program called My Heritage. In Somali language, is Dhaxalkayga, My Heritage. That program was intended to teach young generation to participate the process of preservation of cultural heritage, especially the tangible one. As your information, Somalia have been dealing with a lot of things, including a crisis in the industry of cultural heritage. So a young generation intended to participate that initiative by recording a certain item or certain heritage site and sharing people the meaning of that item or the building. So it was very effective thing, which was yes, it was initial. It was the first time we tried, but at least a lot of people have learned new things, including a lot of historical building, ruined sites, which they used to see, but they didn't know. So as a young generation, it's easier for us to participate that process by first knowing it, then sharing our colleagues or our friends. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me add one more thing before I give you the mic. As a youngster myself, who's also in the field of heritage, I'm an archaeologist by profession. So before, even doing, choosing a professional field, what I've seen in the country that I studied in, now I was not, okay, I am a Somali, but I studied in the country, my university. And I would see the youngsters would come to the archaeological sites. They would volunteer to work on the site. They would volunteer to try find organizations that are dealing with heritage preservations. They would actually come to the university classes to attend. These are not students who are studying in university, but they would come to attend the classes so that they can find out what these sites are. They would ask our professors and our teachers and educators, they would ask them, how can I take part in this? How can I do this? How can I, be helpful in the heritage preservation sites? And you would see a lot of people, surprisingly, a lot of people who are not in the field, but always on the site, who are trying to work on it. So I think as a youngster, my first instinct, if I was not in the field, would be try to volunteer in organizations or sites. I think we have historic sites and archaeological sites in most countries. It's either the sites or volunteering for organizations or trying to do just one Google search. I think it's one such a way to try, and if you want to educate yourself, it's just one such a way, right on the internet. what heritage sites do we have? And what do they stand for? What are their values? What role do they play? Try to educate yourself, and when you educate yourself, try educating others. I think it starts with us. And as for the rest of the answer, I will leave to Ms. Chilangwa.
Yeah, so the previous speaker mentioned that you need to know it, because you wouldn't know how to contribute or preserve something if you don't even know what it is. So that's a very good point. And how is it that you can know it if you're not undergoing any training for it? There are certain places, if someone is still at high school, even college, you have heritage clubs in some countries. So you could join a heritage club. You could join organizations like ICOMOS, Hayaan Heritage.
Yes.
So that's, which are usually just volunteer organizations, but you get to learn a lot from them, and you get to interact with professionals and learn a lot from the professionals, and of course be able to contribute in one way or another to the preservation of heritage in your country and also at the international level. And one other point which was mentioned is to do with new technologies, emerging technologies. The young ones are better at that than us old people.
You will be surprised how much you guys know more than us about technology. It's surprising. A lot of people do not have information and technology. A lot of youngsters, compared to people who are over advanced age. You'd be surprised.
Yes, so that's one area the young ones can really help with developing innovative technologies and digital applications for heritage documentation, interpretation, and even conservation. Another way, documenting heritage through mapping, photography, also being part of oral history projects. Young ones could also help to revitalize traditional crafts through entrepreneurship and creative industries. Young ones can also advocate for heritage protection where they are within their schools, their universities, and their local communities. Yeah, they can also be involved in research and other initiatives in getting more information to do with certain heritage and also documenting it. Yeah.
As youngsters, I think we do have a complaint to you guys. In school or during let's say teenager, before the 20s, we've not been educated on heritage or cultural stuff. At no means. In school, they teach us geography and history or just social studies. They do not focus on heritage information. And we barely try, you have to be very much involved or come from a family that has deeper connections with heritage for you to be interested. Otherwise, you will just be like, oh, it's an old building. Take a picture and destroy it, okay? That's the first instinct. Okay, no one cares. We draw graffiti on it. We don't actually care because we do not have information. We've not been educated in it. Our complaint is you guys do not make a road for us to tread on. But I think we do not have other complaint. We have that complaint. I just wanted to add it. Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
thank you for that, for listening to us, complaining about you. I would just like to add, I don't know if it's a note or a question. There's a note in here, written here. Let me see this in the question. It says, I will just read it out to you from Vanessa. She says, I practice in the UK, and one thing that works well with ensuring communities know about their heritage and history is subsidized fees for residents of a town to enter museums, etc., while others pay full fees. There are also memberships with various heritage societies where you can visit sites for free on a monthly or annual subscriptions. I know places in Livingstone, Zambia has fees. Zambia have fees for residents and tourists, which is a great start. I think this is referring to the questions we did about financing the sites. I think. Yes. Anyways, that is the remark from Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa, very much. I will leave the final remarks and final, anything you would like to add to the conclusion. Ms. Chilangwa, I will leave the mic down to you for you to finish whatever you want to add. Anything you want to add? Or if there's anyone else who has anything they want to say to her, please raise your hand if you have anything you would like to add to her before I give the mic for final remarks. Please ask her about ICOMOS' willingness to bridge professional and financial gaps in heritage conservation. Ms. Chilangwa, we have one question for you.
Just to repeat it. Sorry, I'm not able to see the chat.
They said to ask you about ICOMOS' willingness to bridge professional and financial gaps in heritage conservation.
Okay. Professional and financial gaps.
Yes, the willingness to bridge that.
And the willingness is there, but I think he would have to be more specific. I'm sure he has something in mind.
Mr. Alam,
it's a very general question. So I can just say, yes, the willingness is there, but it also depends on what.
Mr. Alam, maybe you would like, I will give you the mic so that you can be more specific.
Thank you very much.
You go ahead.
It's my pleasure to be part of this presentation. And I wanted to ask you about the willingness that ICOMOS has in order to support professionals in terms of excelling their skill in heritage conservation. And also, as we discussed earlier, one of the major constraint in heritage conservation is financial gaps that exist in each country, particularly in Africa. So, in the ICOMOS, is there any platform that ICOMOS provide financial support for projects, or is there any means that they will give or they will support a kind of professional training and so on?
Yeah, so usually since we do not really have a budget for training, but whenever, especially a national committee, it's easier for ICOMOS to work with a national committee instead of individuals in a country. So if, for example, a country identifies that there's certain training that they would like to do, and they come up with a proposal, then ICOMOS will help to secure funding from other organizations in order for them to be able to do that training, depending on what sort of training it is. If it's just a webinar like this one, it wouldn't cost much. it will just be the link and people's time. But if it's a training, on-site training or physical training, that one definitely you need to find the funds, and ICOMOS is able to reach out to other organizations to see who can fund that training or a project. We are not always successful, but there are various cases where we can be able to say we were able to do, like last year we did some training in Congo, and we also had the project in Burkina Faso very recently. That one both were sponsored by ALIF. Yeah, so the willingness is there to support. We may not have the funds, but we'll see how we can secure the funds from other organizations. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Salamne?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope your question is answered. Thank you very much for taking part in it. Before, again, we have another question. Before we move on to you, again, I'm very sorry. One more question. This person called Khawla says, I appreciate the ICOMOS training in earth and architecture. I was able to benefit from. Oh, it's not a question, it's just a state. I was able to benefit from. Apologies for joining a little late and missing the presentation. It's very much okay. I'm sorry, I was just it's very much okay for being late every time. But we do have the recording in case you want. The link will be posted in LinkedIn in case anyone wants the full webinar. You can find it on the social medias. Hayaan Heritage. They will be there. Anyways, thank you very much, Ms. Chilangwa. I will leave the final remarks to you. You have the mic.
Thank you so much. So after this presentation and all the discussion, we should all be able to appreciate that heritage conservation is not solely about protecting the monuments or the sites, but it's also about being able to strengthen the relationships between people, the communities, places, and sustainable development. Success for the preservation of our heritage will depend on collaboration amongst governments, heritage professionals, and the local communities as well. And also the private sector, academia, and the young people. By us being able to embrace inclusive governance, innovative financing, climate resilience, and the responsible use of technology, we can ensure that tangible cultural heritage remains a living resource that continues to enrich societies and also contribute to sustainable development for not only the present, but also generations to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Chilawa. That was very helpful. We really appreciate you doing this presentation for us. We appreciate every part of the webinar because the things you told us were very helpful. Me as a youngster and every other person here really understands the importance of learning about the cultural heritage. And I think you've covered every part of it. So we really appreciate you. Appreciate having you. And I appreciate every other person who was here attending this from the start to the end, or just a minute, or just like a couple minutes. Every person in here, thank you very much. We'll have more heritage concerning webinars in the future. We'll have more other people. And we appreciate Ms. Chilangwa for being with us. Anyone who would like to say anything else, anyone who would like to find information about these webinars, they are all over the heritage sites. not heritage sites, I mean our websites on social media. On Hayaan Heritage, I think it's written as Hayaan Heritage on every platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, or even on websites. You can find them. You can find the link on YouTube as well. So thank you very much again, once again, everyone else. Keep an eye for the next call. We will. Thank you very much, Khawla, for the links you've shared with us. And have a nice day. It was nice having you all here.
Thank you.